thank you very much for making the trip to London to see us, both of you. Now, tell us a bit about your respective characters on your respective shows for those that aren't familiar with Warehouse 13 and Haven.
Would you like to go first, sir?
No, I would not.
Okay, I'll take that then. I play a character named Steve Jinks on Warehouse 13, and he's kind of a... Have you guys seen the show? A few of you have seen it? Okay, good, good, good. So he kind of is introduced as a new agent with the ability to tell when people are lying. So as you can imagine, being an agent, that would really, really help. And he's a little bit of a stick in the mud compared to some of the other characters. Pete has got a great sense of humor, and Steve's a little bit a little drier. So it kind of makes for an interesting dynamic. But yeah, he's a new guy in the warehouse. And if you guys have seen the show, then I hope you guys are kind of digging him, because I have a great time playing him. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy.
Well, my name is Lucas Bryant, and I play the character of Audrey Parker on Haven, who's a female FBI agent. No, I'm actually her partner, Nathan. For those of you who don't know, Haven is about a very small town set on the east coast of Maine in the States where all sorts of strange things are happening. And yeah, Nathan has the strange thing that's happening to him at the start of the series is that he cannot feel pain. So that is...
Physical or emotional?
I'm sorry?
Physical or emotional?
Physical.
Oh, so he can feel emotional pain.
I can feel emotional
broken heart?
pain,
Oh.
and I do feel a lot of emotional pain. Thanks for reminding me, actually.
It's my pleasure.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having us.
Right, we have a question from a young lady here.
Hi, this is for Aaron. Are you coming back in the next season?
Am I going to be back next season? I actually don't know at this point. They don't start shooting the season till, I think, the end of January or early February. So I think that there's a few ways that they could bring the character back, some artifacts, and I'm really hoping, and I've been saying this to people who've asked me today, you know, I think if you like the character and you want to see him back, just, you know, tell Syfy that you that you want to see him back. I had a great time playing him, and I think there's a huge storylines, his backstory and stuff that they could develop. So I've got my fingers crossed. Yeah, thanks.
And so how did each of you become involved in your respective roles on Haven and Warehouse 13?
Sorry, how did we get involved with the
Yes.
roles? You take this one first.
Well, I've told this story many times. I'm sure many of you have heard it already, but I went through a series of auditions with a number of other people, except I was the one who wanted it most. I needed a job so badly. I was at the end of my whatever there is. I was at the end of it. I was beyond the end of it. I was like off the cliff. It was over. I said to Emily, who I knew, I'd actually worked with Emily, who plays Audrey on the show. I'd worked with her a couple months before I started auditioning for Haven. And it had been like a number of big auditions in a row where I was like the guy that didn't get the job, you know? So I was so sick of having that experience. It was down to me and a couple other guys, and I was like, I almost throttled her after the audition. I said, I better get this job. You better put in a word for me or you're dead. You know, she said, it's going to be all right, Lucas, calm down. And I said, it's not going to be all right. Trust me, it's not going to be all right. You better get me this job. And she did, thankfully, because, well, neither of us would have been around for much longer if that hadn't worked out.
And I actually had pretty much the entire opposite experience to you on that. I really, really lucked out. They'd been looking for the role of Steve, I think, for a long time, and they hadn't found anybody that they really responded to. So I took a meeting. I just happened to be up in Toronto where the show shoots, and I took a meeting with Jack Kenny, the creator of the show, and we sat down and we talked for about 2 hours just over breakfast, and at the end of the meeting he said, yeah, no, you know, I think you're Steve. I think we should probably try and move forward with this. And I, of course, thought that he was just blowing smoke because it never happens that easy, as you can attest to. You got to really usually work for him and test for these parts and that. So I think 2 days later, I got a call saying, hey, how'd you like to come play Steve on the show? And again, I still thought it was like too good to be true, but they don't always happen that way, so I'll take an easy one when I get it, and I'm so glad that it did happen because it's been a great part. So,
if you could ever be a superhero, what superhero do you think you'd like to play?
Superhero.
And why?
what superhero?
I would like to be the superhero named Aaron Ashmore. And I would play it on a show called The Aaron Ashmore Show. And it would be all about me.
I think you're onto
abilities.
something here. I think you're, yeah. I'll go. You can create it. I'll create it. You star in it. Well,
Yeah.
Are you guys? Is there any comic book fans here?
No.
Surprisingly few. I think if I could be, are you guys like Vertigo fans? Any Vertigo fans out there? Oh, only like 3. Okay. Well, anyways, I think that I'd probably like to do like King Mob. Anybody know King Mob? No, nobody. Okay. Well, anyways, so then I'll be Superman. I think I'd really like to be Superman.
Yeah, I don't actually care. I just want to be able to fly, and I've said this before, I want to be able to be invisible, and I wanted to be able to fly invisibly.
Nice.
In your part in the show, how difficult is it to pretend that nothing hurts you?
Ah, yes. Someone asked me that just a moment ago over there. Well, it's I'm a rather unfeeling person, so that kind of works out when we're shooting. But also, initially it was something that we talked a lot about, with the writers, because there has to be some level of feeling that Nathan has, otherwise he wouldn't even be able to stand up, right? Or be able to grab anything without, just being a big messy puddle on the ground. And would he be wetting his pants all the time because he didn't know he had to go to the bathroom? These were all the questions that were very important to get answered. So once we got through that, then I realized, there are, it's not really something that I necessarily have to show all the time, but I do enjoy finding little moments to put it in, like bumping into doors or having, tripping on things or banging on things and not quite noticing. But the thing that I almost screw up most of the time is when, because the only character I can feel, the only person I can feel is Audrey. I can feel her touch. And so sometimes Emily and I are working something out, and say it's something physical. She'll just, and then I'm like, well, but if you do that, then I have to, freak out. And she's like, right. So we have to make sure she, only touches me on the clothes, or that if we ever do touch skin to skin, not, oh boy, where am I going here? that it's, something very purposeful. So that's what becomes tricky. Long-winded answer to your question.
Lucas, how's it going? How do you feel that the storyline of Haven compares to other Stephen King stories which are set in Maine? Do you feel that it has a similar atmosphere to other Stephen King creations?
I think doing something that's based on Stephen King's work obviously is an ambitious undertaking in the first place. Stephen King fans are very loyal and very serious about his stuff, So initially we were a bit nervous, I think, to see how they took the show, and thankfully it has been pretty well embraced. And I think, some people who aren't Stephen King fans, or even people who don't necessarily like Stephen King's stuff, wouldn't necessarily have a problem might find themselves enjoying Haven, because I think it walks a line in between. There are enough little hidden Stephen King references every week that will keep his true fans excited, and finding the tiny stuff like street signs, certain street names in the town, or like streets named from his novels, etc. But in general, it doesn't. I think it's not like a heavily Stephen King infused show necessarily. But the thing that I'm most proud of and that I think is consistent with all his work is how, you know, you can take he does such an amazing job of taking an everyday, mundane, ordinary situation, you know, in this case, this perfect little town in the middle of nowhere, and just kind of cranking it sideways and weirding everyone out in an otherwise normal world.
Have you got to meet Stephen King?
Stephen King so far has not come to visit me. I don't know why, and I'm still waiting for him to show up, and we are trying to get him. We'd love to have him come on the show.
Like a cameo.
Definitely.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I mean, he gave the writers his blessing initially, and he's been in contact with them and let them know that he, you know, is a fan of what they're doing. But so far, we haven't been able to get him in Haven, but I think that would be amazing.
I've heard in the case of Haven and Warehouse 13, a lot of pranks are pulled off that screen. Can you tell us about some of the pranks?
Oh, I have one about Eddie that's kind of crass, but would you like to hear it? It sounds like you really want to hear it. So one of the first times that I worked with Eddie, we were doing a scene where Pete and Micah freeze Steve in the bronze room. So they turned him into bronze. And again, I said this was crass, so, you know, but Eddie's a little crass. So there's a bit where they get me locked in there, and then when they roll the camera, the door is supposed to open, and I come flying out. So they have to get me in there. They put me in there, and Eddie's standing very close to the door, and I hear a little noise, and I thought, oh, what is that? And then the door closed, and as it's closing, I'm realizing that Eddie has farted in the chamber and has stuck me in there. And I couldn't do anything about it. So, you know, just disgusting stuff like that. That's Eddie McClintock for you. Sweetheart.
Yeah, really lovely. All right, well, yeah, I have one. This is a story that didn't actually happen on set, but it relates to the cast and people in, some of the people in charge of Haven. And I don't know if I should really be telling it, but I'm going to. So last year when we were doing the promotion for the launch of the show in Europe, Mr. Eric Balfour, who plays Duke Crocker on the show, pulled quite a good prank on Martine, who was until recently the head of NBC Universal International production. So he was managing our European stuff. I won't tell you exactly what that prank was, but Martine was very embarrassed and told Eric that someday he would get him back. So about 6 months later, before we were all going to go out to dinner, the whole cast and crew and all the producers from the show, and Martine, and Balfour spoke to me a couple days before, and he said, I was at this party the other night, and I met Martine's wife, and she's gorgeous, and she was kind of hitting on me. And I was like, dude, watch out. Do not get involved. Stay back. You know, that is... Now, Martine's wife was actually out of the country, but Martine came to dinner that night with a woman who was playing his wife, who spent the whole night pretending to get more and more drunk and hitting on Eric in front of Martine, taking pictures with him, kissing him, sitting on his lap. Eric was like, to his credit, he was such a gentleman. He was like, yeah, you know, if Martine says it's okay, sure, we can take a picture with you kissing me, but I don't. And he would run to the bathroom, and he's like splashing water on his face. And he's looking in the mirror. He's like, dude, you got to get out. What are you doing? And so he would just run around the whole party. She was chasing him everywhere. And everyone at the dinner, there were about 40 people, everyone was in on it. Everyone knew that she was the fake wife. He called his manager and agent secretly from the party, and he was like, what do I do? The producer's wife is all over me. And they said, get out of there now. Get out of there. So at the end of the dinner, Martine made a big speech where he thanked everyone, and then he told Eric that the woman who had been all over him all night was in fact not his wife, and Balfour just swore at him for about a half hour. We all laughed. It was amazing.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, join me in giving a massive round of applause to our guests from Haven and Warehouse 13, Lucas Bryant and the fantastic Aaron Ashmore.
Thanks, guys.